Well, as you know, or to my subscribers on this channel, you know a lot of my focus on this channel is health, and basically mainly health through natural methods, which sometimes is coined alternative methods, but they're not alternative. They're some of the most ancient methods known to mankind, been practiced by many cultures throughout the world for thousands and thousands of years. Of course, they're ignored by major medical. Now, I want to get on to something else, a different topic that's actually specific to Florida, and it's also a major concern to retirees because they could be affected by that, and that is the Baker Act. It's the Florida Mental Health Act, which can be, it's widely known in the state, not officially, not by the government, not by the medical people who profited by it, but actually by the people and the residents in the state, that this act is widely abused. Although it was an improvement over what happened prior years, what's come on in recent years is the pharmaceutical industry and psychotropic drugs that have been far more widely prescribed now than they have been back in, say, the 70s and earlier. So the act was passed in the 1970s, and in the 1980s and onward, especially after 2000s, psychotropic drugs have been prescribed copiously, but there's a nefarious element to this whole thing because it's involuntary. There's another thing involved in here. So you're officially retired. Okay, yeah, all right, we're wearing a crown, officially retired. It's like getting a reward and like, hey, I earned this. I'm retired. So where am I to go? First thing you think, hey, I'm going to sell my house. So you sell your house up north. It could be the Northeast, it could be Midwest or whatever. You figure I am not dealing with this cold, snowy climate anymore. I'm going to Florida. And actually, a lot of people do associate Florida with grandpas and grandmas besides gators and bugs. But actually, there's not really too many bugs. Depends on where you are. If you're living in a swamp, yes, but by and large, not really. Um, anyway, so you sell your house, you go to Florida. And then it turns out you might have a medical issue comes up because you're getting older. Now, one of the things I've always had a major peeve about, and it's been on this channel, like I alluded to in the beginning in my first statements, is that nature is one of the biggest healers going, and actually, the Florida sunshine is one of the biggest healers going. Believe it or not, as long as you don't really overdo it, Florida sunshine can actually greatly enhance your health, far more than just producing vitamins D. It actually affects the cholesterol in your blood, believe it or not. It actually improves your immune system even beyond the increase in vitamin D production, and it improves your psyche. But one of the biggest problems you have with issues in Florida is the side effects of the medications you're being administered while you're here and you have all your wonderful health care. And of course, wonderful health care is a big money racket. Now, I went over this before about statin drugs. Now, this is one of the things where there's another side effect on. But part of the side effect is it could be dementia, it could be Alzheimer's, because, in other words, statin drugs lower cholesterol, and cholesterol is something that lowers the function of the brain. If the too lowering of cholesterol, too far of a lowering of cholesterol, lowers the function of the brain or your optimal function of the brain, and you can have Alzheimer's or whatever. It also slows you down. It slows down the process whereby the mitochondria in the cell which is the energy sacs in the cell, which is actually about half the consistency of every human cell. Some they used to think it was smaller than that, but it's actually about half the size of the human cell. It slows all that down, so you feel sluggish, and also you have this brain fog. Now, there's a side issue with this. In Florida, they have this thing informally known as the Baker Act. It's got an actual Florida statute, but a lot of times seniors are being victimized by this, especially seniors who live alone. And seniors who live alone may not have started out living here alone. Maybe they came down here with a spouse, and the spouse died, and they're surviving the spouse by many years, and they're still staying in Florida because they really can't move, they're too old to move, and all this type of stuff. So seniors and children are some of the ones that get victimized the most by the Baker Act, but everybody does, to tell you the truth. It's formally known as the Florida Mental Health Act. It's got a Florida statute on it. Here's the catch. So say, for instance, you got dementia, and it's artificially induced by statin drugs or some other medication, or maybe your health is just been kind of declining lately, and maybe you don't have the same energy. Um, but you can function. You can function. You can get around. You can do things. Maybe you're not as spry as you used to be, but whatever. You can still get around, go to the store, do all this stuff. Um, but the Florida Mental Health Act gives officials, as well as those who deem necessary, which could be anybody. It could be a neighbor, a family member who wants to steal all your money. I hate to say that, but it could be. It could be the law enforcement. It could be any social worker, anybody, right? The right to examine those who are suspected of suffering from a mental illness, which could be from any kind of prescription drug or even a physical ailment. In other words, maybe you got another problem with your blood sugar or something like that, and they decide somebody, because I'm going to tell you right now, honestly, the psychiatric profession is the biggest bunch of snake oil going, and what they could do is they could look at you, and they could say, because it's in their profit, their profitability is based upon how many people they treat with drugs, and they could say, maybe you have a physical ailment, or maybe it's just an ailment that's due from side effects of statin drugs, which is a prime example. They could say you have a mental illness and then commit you against your will. Seniors and children, and actually a lot of other people, are victimized by this in the state of Florida, left and right. And so, in other words, if you can refuse a voluntary examination. It doesn't matter. You will be involuntary examined, and there's a financial incentive for the psych to actually commit you a lot of times. Depends on who it is, but it's abused left and right in the state, and they know it. Now, you think maybe there's oversight going on in the state? No, there's not. I mean, you have the Florida Department of Health, but I could tell you honestly, the Florida Department of Health is basically just like every other government agency out there. They are what do? They're they sit on their ass basically, but it's not if some kind of example is blatantly heinous or somebody dies or something like that, do something they really act. But the drugging of seniors and children and other people by psychs, that doesn't matter. It's like that's all part of the business. That's all part of what goes on in the medical profession, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, I did point out some other videos about some other things that are going on in the state, but also I want to point out this, that the medical profession, now my aspect on medical is healing with nature. Now, I know healing with nature doesn't work for everything. If you get run over by a car, or you fall off, if you're working on a rooftop and you fall off a rooftop, or you're up on a ladder and putting up Christmas lights on your tree way high up and you fall down and you break your hip, healing with nature is not going to really, you're going to need immediate medical attention. So that type of medical attention you really definitely need, the real medical people for. But actually healing with nature to repair a broken bone or any kind of, therapy, whatever, pain alleviation, actually a lot of that stuff that's called healing with nature, quote unquote alternative, is good. But actually, the medical profession is such a money-driven enterprise here in the state of Florida. It's almost like, here's the sword of Damocles hanging over your head. That's the medical profession. The big money's like Pac-Man grabbing all the money, and there's you or me underneath that. So anytime you possibly might have a medical problem, you have the potential to get fleeced. And actually, even Baker racket, it's actually part of the deal. This can happen to seniors. Now, I put out a video recently. I didn't know too much about Florida Governor Rick Scott's background until recently, and it's pretty interesting because I came across about it on a Wikipedia article, and they went into a lot of detail as to how corrupt this guy actually was before he became Florida governor. He spent $75 million of his own money to become governor, and he was involved in the largest Medicare Medicaid fraud in entire history. He was the CEO of Columbia HCA, Hospital Corporation of America at the time. Walked up with $350 million. The company got 14 felonies, and he didn't get charged, and he went on to be the Florida state governor. And then, of course, you know what Florida's noted for? Medical. But, there's something about this guy's eyes I never really liked, and I just kind of picked this up. This is like one of those non-copyrighted for commercial use type of pictures, but who was scarier? Governor Rick Scott or Michael Berryman of The Hills Have Eyes. Yeah, there's something creepy about this guy, I can tell you that for sure. But Florida's just a crazy, kooky state. I can tell you a lot of people come here because I don't know. It's a little different, you know. It's got the swamp. It's got the funny shape for a state, and but it's kind of charming, you know. And I guess that sums it up with Florida. But you know, one of the deals is when you're looking at the corruption that's going on in the medical profession, you're not going to get any kind of help from the Department of Health in Florida, and because look who's running the state. Look who's running the state. It's all involved, and you know it's public knowledge. I point to the Wikipedia articles in one of the comments here below this video, and you can look at it. I mean, it's about the Hospital Corporation of America and also about Governor Rick Scott, and you can look at exactly what it states. Now, Wikipedia is a dumbed down version, but there's a lot of stuff that's going on. I just want to put this as a warning to people who retire here. Now, is there any place that's, you know, utopia? I don't know. But, you know, there's another thing you could do if you're actually a resident of Florida and you're stuck as a senior and forever being a resident of Florida till, you know, you die many decades from now, hopefully. You know, it's like a long time. You know, I'm into longevity. I hope people can live as long as Noah and be healthy and party and screw around, too, at the same time. Which, you know, not even just be old, you know. Do whatever you want. Besides even hitting a little white ball around, because I'm not into golf. I mean, I don't know why people are, but anyway. But, you know, you got to have some teeth as a senior, and I know a lot of people as seniors, they got some real, you know, they didn't retire because they didn't work hard all their life. They got all the, you know, shrewdness, savvy, brain intellect for the most part, as long as they're not getting too many medications and stuff, that they can fight back. And they also have the time to do so. So basically, this is a good warning video to put out to seniors that, first off, watch out for this damn Baker Act. Actually, they need to repeal that completely. Look into it. You might even want to look at the CCHR, which is Citizens Committee on Human Rights, and look at all the abuses that are going on in the state of Florida, left and right, all over the place, from kids all the way up to from age, you know, 9 months to age 99 and past. I mean, it's going on left and right. I do know that even in the state of Florida, they have, you know, big financial incentives to fill assisted living. So, not if they don't only Baker Act people, they try to fill them in that way. You know, oh, you can't take care of yourself anymore. Yeah, right. And, you know, that could be a temporary condition. It could be a very temporary condition. Even, you know, I mean, actually, you know what the assumption is because, you know, take for instance, somebody's like, you know, 99 years old and somebody's 18 years old, and they're both blonde females, right? And, you know, you heard so the ditzy blonde. And I'm showing the liberty or death, don't tread on me. This should be your flag you fly as a senior on your house, okay? Don't take any crap for anybody. But what I have to tell you is this. If the 18-year-old blonde ditzy female said a bunch of crazy things, you'd be saying, ha, she's just ditzy, ha, and it would be a big joke. But if somebody 99 said those exact same things, they'd be committed for having dementia or Alzheimer's or some other kind of crap, or possibly Baker Acted or put into one of these facilities or whatever the hell it is, even though they said the exact same thing as the 18-year-old. Because it's like, that's just the way people are judged when they're older. It's wrong, but that's exactly what they do. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. So I think this is a very pertinent video. I'm actually getting on a number of subjects, and actually when I started seeing this angle, I see a lot of wrongdoing in the state of Florida. And I never realized, you know, why the wrongdoing was coming about. But the higher up you go up the chain, you can see where it's coming from. Now, if you go past Rick Scott, you got President Barack Obama with his Obamacare. I mean, the medical profession is a bunch of crap. I mean, basically. Now, I do have some things on my channel about alternative health. Some of it gets into some techie stuff, technical stuff with the spooky tube plasma, the parazappor. Now, the spooky tube plasma machine, you know, that just came out this year. I don't want to tell you too much about it because I don't know. It should be extremely effective because it goes right down to the parameters, and actually better than the parameters of the original machine that worked against cancer in the 1930s. But, if it does work, I can imagine the authorities in Florida would just go right after it because money bags that are all freaking connected to the medical industry, they would try to shut it down. They would. There's no doubt about it. They'd be saying, unauthorized medical device and all this kind of crap. They'd be hammering people left and right because um, medical is one of the biggest abuses of power going on in the United States of America. And where it's being abused most is against the people that can't fight back the least. In other words, the people that can't have the least ability to fight back, which is seniors and children. And I don't want to compare seniors to children because I want to tell people how to really get strong and revitalize as seniors because actually as seniors, if you can revitalize yourself to the way you were when you were 25 years old and be exactly the way you were 25 years old, you will be a force to be reckoned with. Eh. And, actually, just several years ago, I was actually working out 3 hours a day at age 54 through 50, 53, I think, or 52 to 56. I was doing that for about 4.5 years. And I was super shape back then. It kind of went off the thing, but I got to tell you one thing. It was surprising that I was able to snap back like that in my 50s. Wow. And I can tell you right now that most of the government in Florida, actually government in Florida, they don't care. They're in there to get their government job. And if if there's a problem with something, they don't do nothing about it basically because it's got to be somebody dies or something. Even then, they might not do anything about it. They're not there to be advocates for the public. They're mainly there because you know who they work for, right? They work for the state, and you know who the state's run by. And it's all like what I was talking about before, like back in the 1959 or 1959, and General Dwight D. Eisenhower as president, left and did his farewell address. He used to say, "Beware of the military-industrial complex." Well, in Florida, it's beware of the political medical complex. There's a symbiotic relationship going there. So the government and big money, big business, medical are all in cahoots with each other. So do not expect any kind of help from the Florida medical authorities in the Florida Department of Health at all. Not in the least. Unless maybe somebody dies and it's so obvious. But other than that, they're not going to. I look at the pharmaceutical industry somewhat like the sword of the Damocles is hanging over your head. It's just a matter of time they're going to get you with one of their funky meds. Because actually this happened to an uncle of mine, even was retired in Florida. They gave him some damn meds that made him confused. I think it was Oxycontin. And you heard about what happened to Oxycontin later on. It made him confused, and he was driving, and they screwed him up. They screwed him up, basically. And the more people they do this to my family, the more pissed off I get at them. And I'm realizing the evil henchman is actually sitting in the governor's seat right now. He's got to be one of. If you just look at the Wikipedia articles, just don't take my word for it, and make your own mind up on this. Why did he become governor of Florida when he never lived in the state before? There's plenty on this guy. It's amazing. And U.S. seniors probably are oblivious to this because you probably talked to the realtor and you said, "Hey, well, look, that's a nice place. I could live there, and I sold my house and I got this much money left over, and well, you know what? Take some action." Get involved. And, the other thing is, like I said, you got to watch out for is in Florida, they got a unique law called the Baker Act, named after Maxine Baker. And actually, I know one of the attorneys who helped write this act. He regrets it. He regrets it. I talked to him about a month ago or something about this thing. He's like, he regrets being involved in it. He says it turned out to be something not what it was supposed to be. And it's highly abused in various sections, in various ways, and various sections against various sections of society. So, anyway, just putting this out here as a public service announcement. Don't be scared by the governor. He's got freaky eyes, but but he is a bad guy probably. It has to be. It has to be. Anybody with eyes like that's kind of scary, man. So anyway, liberty or death, don't tread on me. This is the flag of the seniors of Florida, especially the veterans. Remember that. Over and out.